Hello, Steve White, Steve Arts 89. Well, I've had some weird experiences in my life, and I was sharing some of these just in some of my videos. And one of the weirdest ones, I like to call it my Twilight Zone moment. And I've had a couple of these over the years, but this one was really, really strange. Now, I have lived in Melbourne my whole adult life, and I've always lived on pretty much on the Epping line, or now the South Morang line. When I first came here, my sister lived in Thomastown, so I stayed with her and I travelled into the city on the Epping line, was in the Epping line, then they extended it to South Morang. And I moved to Brunswick, but there was a tram right outside my door, so I never got the train, which would have been the Hurstbridge line, which was the next one over. But then I moved to Northcote, and the Epping line was my train line again. I had the Bundoora tram that would go right past my house, so I wouldn't get the train a lot, but I still would sometimes, but I'd always get the Epping line. And then I've always stayed in this area, so the closest train has always been the Epping line. So I'm really familiar with this train line and all the stations. I've been on every station. I've been to every stop on this train line over the years. I used to study in Epping for like a year with my uni course for arts, so I used to go all the way to the end of the line, so I know all the stations. And one time I was going to, I think I was going to a friend's place. I'm not sure, I can't remember where I was going now. I just remember I was sitting on the train, I was waiting to get to the station that I had to get off at, and it should have been the next stop because we'd just gone past, I think it was Victoria Park, and it should have been, the next station should have been Collingwood. And Victoria Park is just a regular station, just a little building on the side of the train platform, some trees, just nothing really interesting. And Collingwood is pretty much the same, although it's a little bit higher up, and there is a bit of a walkway to go down, but it's sort of like a stairwell on the side of the station, like you walk around the station, there's like a building there. So I know what it looks like. I wouldn't get off at the wrong station. I know what all these stations look like. I recognise them. I know them well. But I was just not paying attention, and I was like, okay, it's the next stop, and I just stepped off, and I wasn't on the right station. I wasn't at Collingwood. It wasn't Collingwood Station. It should have been Collingwood Station, but it wasn't Collingwood Station. And I looked around, and there was no actual station, like brick building. It was just like this long platform, which was risen up like it was above the road, and it was just like it's hard to explain, but I just remember standing on here and just looking at the edge of it where it had the rails and all that, so you wouldn't like fall off, and looking down, and just everything was kind of dark, and I couldn't really see any street lights, and there was no trees or anything. There was no sound. It was just really quiet. I just remember standing there for a second thinking, where am I? This is not Collingwood Station, and I couldn't really see any. I didn't feel like there was anything around. It just seemed silent. It seemed really otherworldly and strange. I'm like, where am I? And then there was the beep, beep, beep of the doors about to close and the train about to leave. So I jumped back on, and I stayed on. And the next station was Collingwood, which was where I was supposed to get off, because we'd gone past Victoria Park. And I'm like, there's no station between Victoria Park and Collingwood. And there certainly wasn't any raised stations like that. They were all sort of the old ones that have been built years ago, and they've got the old brick sort of stations where they used to sell the tickets, and they've got toilets and stuff like that. And one of them runs under like a bridge, and none of them were like these high up, over the ground sort of stations where you sort of have the station on the ground, then you walk up stairs to get to the platform to get onto the train. That's what it was like. It was like a little platform up in the air, and I was looking out at like the dark sort of air and sky and around it, and I felt like everything was really far away, and it just really freaked me out, because I'm like, what would have happened if I hadn't got back on the train? Where would I be? Where was I? That station doesn't exist. And it really freaked me out for a long time, because obviously I went back on the train that night home, and I'm like, there's no station between Collingwood and Victoria Park. And it didn't seem like a station. Like, it just seemed like a platform. There was no trees, there was no building, and it was really strange, and it was quiet. I felt like there was no sound. and this is really dark, and I didn't feel like I could see anything. I felt like there should have been street lights that would have been showing the buildings and everything. It was just really surreal, and I feel like I just was in the Twilight Zone and I'd stepped into like another world or another reality or something, and like I'm like, where was I? And if I hadn't got back on the train, where would I be now? It really freaks me out to think about it. And the other thing that I was sort of just thinking about, because in the last 3 years I haven't gotten on a train and I haven't been on that line, and what I know is a lot of the old railway crossings are being removed, and they've built elevated train stations that are up above the roads, so the trains just go over the roads and you don't have the traffic going through. And I'm just thinking now, was I having a vision of the future? Am I going to step out on one of those stations that's the old train station's been replaced and it's a new one, and that's what I was seeing? Was I seeing what Collingwood was going to look like in the future, or was I in like another alternate reality or something? It was the weirdest thing ever, and I know how insane that sounds. I mean, I'm not crazy, but I experienced it. I was standing on this platform that doesn't exist, on this train station that doesn't exist, that I've never seen, and it didn't exist then. And like I said, I wonder if I hadn't got back on the train, where would I be now? It's really freaky. But I'm going to go. Feel free to share, like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think. I know people don't believe in anything outside of the ordinary, and they think anyone who tells stories like this is crazy or just making things up, but I had that experience, and I can't explain it, and it was just really weird. And I don't like it's, you know, a lot of people would think that sort of experiences like that and paranormal experiences and ghosts and haunting, stuff like that would be fun. But if you've ever had any of these sort of experiences, they're really not, because you can't explain them, and that is terrifying because you can't deal with them, you can't control them, they're just unexplained.